It takes little to have a lot. The snapdragon is annual, biennial, and perennial. Very few plants are all three at the same time. Let me explain. Here we are dealing with snapdragons, considered as biennials. They are at the end of their blooming period. These are snapdragons that were sown last year among rows of escarole chicory, right next to the lavender plants that are now being visited by bumblebees. But before that, the bumblebees were on the snapdragon flowers. I would just like to go back to the topic of a biennial plant. In fact, it's a plant that is sown around June or July, spends the autumn in a garden like this one does, and is found again the following year. So it spends the winter outside, withstands the cold, and blooms starting from May, June, July, or even a little later, since that's a bit of a unique feature of the snapdragon. So these snapdragons here, we will consider them as biennials. You can see the inflorescences with a few flowers still remaining at the top. It's July. And on the flower stalk, you can already see seeds. You see tiny black snapdragon seeds. If I leave these seeds where they are, they will self-sow right here. And why not? Ants might pick up the seeds, idiots, and carry them into the gaps between bricks, and we'll find new snapdragons growing there. So, as you can see, these snapdragons are considered biennial flowers. I'm going to turn these biennial flowers into perennial flowers. That is to say, if I cut the flower stalks, which is not mandatory, and if this same snapdragon plant manages to survive in the same spot next year, just imagine, this very snapdragon becomes a perennial. Now, let's talk about an annual plant, an annual snapdragon. An annual snapdragon comes from seeds that we collect, memory store, and then sow very early in the spring, starting in February or March, either in seed trays or in a fairly warm place. We let them sprout, transplant them, and they will bloom the same year. That is done starting from June or July. In this case, we're dealing with an annual flower. Snapdragons are easy to sow directly in place, but to ensure successful self-seeding, I recommend refining the surface of the soil with a rake, then firming it down to break up any clumps. If you have a preference for a particular color, cut its flower stalk and tap the pods low to let the tiny black seeds fall directly onto the seed bed. Another method is to collect the tiny black seeds in your hand and scatter them over the surface. A tip for successfully sowing snapdragons: sift a bit of local soil over the seeds, then firm it down. And the seeds will sprout with the next rainfall. Do you know why I'm called wolf's mouth? Well, quite simply, when you press on my two lips, it looks like a wolf's mouth. In summary, the snapdragon or wolf's mouth is a resourceful plant that attracts bees, bumblebees, and children.